Welcome to McDougall. On today's show, Anne Fromm will show you how to stage your own battle plan against cancer. Hello, I'm Wayne Judd, and now a man whose ideas will shock you only a little less than your most recent medical bills. Here's Dr. John.
Well, have you given up beef yet?
I'm seriously considering it, Doctor, I must say.
Well, most of America has given up beef, or at least they're thinking about it, and they're going to chicken and fish. Don't you think that's a good idea?
Most Americans have given up beef because it's safer, right?
Well, that's what they think.
Chicken and fish is not safer than beef?
I tell you, Wayne, I have somebody come to my office at least once a week, and they start out and they say, I'm incurably ill. I went to my doctor, my dietitian. They told me to switch from red meat to chicken and fish,
right,
to lower my cholesterol. I did it, and I rechecked my cholesterol and stayed the same. I'm incurably ill. I've got some kind of genetic disease.
I'm sorry, I've had that exact experience. I didn't know you were going to talk about that today.
Well, you know, the truth of the matter is they made virtually no change at all. When you change from beef and pork to chicken and fish, you're just switching among various muscles. Let me give you the cholesterol content of these foods. For 3.5 ounces, beef has 85 milligrams of cholesterol.
Okay.
Skinned white chicken, 85 milligrams of cholesterol. Turkey, 83 milligrams. Fish, somewhere between 55 and 115 milligrams of cholesterol. A muscle is a muscle is a muscle, whether it wiggles a tail, flaps a wing, or moves a limb. And when you eat these various muscles, you have virtually the same impact on your health. There have been 3 studies done that have checked what happens when people change from red meat, beef and pork, to chicken and fish, and the consequence is their cholesterol remains basically the same.
Well, where does this come from? Where did we get all this?
Well, people don't like to make drastic changes, Wayne, and so if you just suggest to folks that they have to make little changes, in other words, they just substitute the meat in their stew or substitute the kind of meat they have in the center of the plate, they find that an easy adjustment, and so people welcome that message. But if they stopped and thought about it, that's a little change. It's an easy change, a little change, and the results are you get very little improvement in your health. If you really want to be healthy, you really want to drop that cholesterol, you really want to lose the weight, you really want to get the health back, then you have to make big changes. Big changes beget big results.
But isn't red meat more dangerous than white meat for other reasons, John?
Not really that much. As a matter of fact, you know, they sell it to you in terms of the fat thing, right?
Right.
They tell you that,
right.
That beef is higher than fat. Well, beef's 60% fat. Chicken's about 50% fat. And the other thing that happens is that when you lower the fat content, you raise the animal protein content. And there's a whole slew of diseases that are related to animal protein, not just the fat, like osteoporosis, kidney disease, sometimes damage to the liver, kidney stones. And so it really isn't much improvement at all. As a matter of fact, you've got to think of all these things as delicacies. These are rich foods, Wayne, that you have on special occasion. You know what special occasion is?
What is a special occasion, John?
Thanksgiving.
Yes,
Christmas.
I confess.
Easter, your birthday.
Yes.
You have birthday cake on your birthday, not
yes.
every day after dinner.
I see. Oh, so you're saying we can do it once in a while?
Yeah, that was the intention. The intention is to
see.
have these delicacies like beef and chicken and fish and birthday cake and Easter eggs. These were supposed to be on holiday occasions, but when you're an American, you're so rich, you get to feast 3 times a day, 21 times a week. And as a result, you stay sick, your cholesterol stays up, and you just don't get any healthier. And that's the sadness of the situation. So it's important that you understand that now. Now you're going to make some changes, right?
I guess I'll have to think some more. Thank you, John.
In a moment, we'll be back with a story that'll be just as exciting for you and just as shocking for you with Anne Fromm and her battle with cancer.
Looking for a brighter future? Learn English and make it happen on Hello Channel.
Paola. Sí, mamá. Ven acá, por favor.
I don't know how my mom knew. But I guess moms always know. I wasn't being very nice to one of the girls at school. I knew it was wrong. I knew I wasn't supposed to be mean. I guess I didn't think it was a big deal. But in one sentence, my mom helped me understand. She said, "Mija, you need to treat others the way you want to be treated." I thought about that a lot. I still do.
Life's most important lessons are best learned in the home. A message from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
And a battle plan for cancer. I mean, everybody wants a battle plan for cancer. And from, you earned the right to teach us that battle plan, didn't you?
Yeah, I learned the hard way.
Tell us what happened.
Well, it was about 5.5 years ago I got the news that I already had breast cancer that had spread throughout my body, literally covering me with tumors.
Well, you're not sitting here right now.
Yes,
you
I
can't
am.
be, because
Yes.
breast cancer spread throughout the body doesn't leave a person 5 years.
That's what I heard, but I didn't believe it.
And your life was going along just perfectly well,
Yes.
and one day, would you find a lump?
Actually, I'd found a lump prior to that, a year earlier, and immediately gone in, had a mammogram, follow-up ultrasound on that, and I was assured at that time this was just a cyst, nothing to worry about. And over the course of the next year, that cancer had actually spread throughout my body, literally covering my skull, my ribs, my backbone. In fact, every vertebrae of my spine was covered with tumors, actually having eaten through several vertebrae, so it broke my back. Quarter-sized holes eaten through all my pelvic bones by the time they finally figured out what was the matter with me.
And I'm sure at that moment you were angry because the doctor hadn't found it a year before.
I think more than anything I was scared because at that point they said they only expected me to live a few more months.
Well, that's what I would expect. If you came to me with that story, I would say, you don't have a chance, not a chance. And you weren't willing to take that diagnosis?
Right. I had 2 small children at that time and a husband who loved me very much, and I felt like it was worth fighting for.
And so what'd you do?
Well, I went through, the only thing that my doctor offered me was chemo, surgery, radiation.
So that cured you?
No, it didn't.
It hasn't before, and I just
No.
say that facetiously because the difference
Right.
made in people with surgery and radiation is essentially 0 when it comes to survival, and
Right.
chemotherapy is highly controversial.
Yes, and I even went through a bone marrow transplant that nearly killed me. I spent 52 days in isolation and nearly died of pneumonia and complications just from the treatment. And at the end of the 52 days, they said, "We're very sorry, but it just didn't work for you," and I was sent home to die.
So what did work for you, Ann, then, obviously, was your positive attitude. I read about that in your book. It was your positive attitude that cured you and all that, right?
Well, I think that played a part in it, that I didn't give up.
But that wasn't really the cure.
Well, hope it plays a very, very big factor.
What
I
would you
think.
guess would be the cure? Did you read the book?
I read the book, so it's not fair.
Yeah.
I know how the story ends. Well, we all know how the story ends, don't we?
Yeah.
It's a good story.
Well, someone sent me a book on the link between nutrition and cancer, and I love to do research, so I began to just read anything I could get my hands on, medical reports, anything I could find. Went to see a nutritionist who outlined a program for me to just work on my immune system. It just made so much sense to me that all of us have some cancer in our bodies, and it's our immune system that is constantly keeping that in check, fighting that off. Well, I realized then that my immune system had become so weakened that cancer had been allowed to thrive in my body. So I went to a nutritionist to find an immune building program. 5 weeks later after starting, I went back to my oncologist for my next checkup, and he couldn't find a trace of cancer in my body.
And so what did he say?
He was flabbergasted. The first thing he did was to do more tests, because he said, well, that can't be right. And he came back, and those also showed no trace of cancer in my body. And he said, well, this had to be your diet or divine intervention.
You would
I
accept
said-
either, right?
I said both. Yes.
And to this day, I mean, is he now recommending a healthy diet?
I wish that would have changed his ways, but no, he still sticks with what he learned in medical school.
What I would expect as a response is this was a spontaneous remission,
Exactly.
and that's what they told you.
Right, serendipity.
It just happened.
Yes.
But you don't believe that.
Right, I don't.
You believe that spontaneous remission was more likely because you took a positive approach to it, right?
Right.
And what did this do in terms of diet? I mean, are we talking about more vegetables?
A radical change. You're looking at a girl who grew up in Iowa whose brother still runs a hog farm there. And then I lived in Wisconsin for 9 years. So we're talking the meat and dairy capital of the world. And I went completely to fruits and vegetables, lots of juices, and just a general cleansing and then rebuilding of the immune
Well,
system.
you were so ill at that time, it probably didn't matter what you ate, did it?
Actually,
you'd been
they
happy to eat
say
anything.
that 40% of all cancer patients actually die of malnutrition. That's what medical doctors say about their own patients, so it could be even
So this
higher.
change in diet was not difficult for you, especially facing the grave consequences?
Right, when you consider the alternative.
Okay, so a vegetable-based diet,
Right.
some juicing, anything else?
I did take a few supplements. My deficiencies were so severe at that point that I had to overcome those deficiencies with a few supplements.
Now,
yes.
you've had a chance to talk to, I'm sure, lots of women in a similar situation, and maybe even some men with prostate cancer, because it's basically
Yes.
the same disease.
Exactly.
Have you found any other women who've had this divine intervention or this spontaneous remission?
Well, that's the thing. Afterwards, I found out I was not an isolated case. There was a lot of people out there who had gone on the same similar program and also regained their health.
But in 5 weeks?
That was a very short time. I really had committed myself to at least a year and a half, you know, to really stick with it hard before I would see results, and I was amazed.
And you would have worked on it for a lifetime.
Yes, I continued to do that.
And it would have been a short lifetime if it hadn't worked for you. How about other women? Have you made this advice to other women? Clean up your diet, don't give up hope, and seen any other positive responses?
Yes, we have. In fact, our third book, we're publishing just stories of other people who have used the same nutritional program to regain their health.
Well, you know, you might get the scientific curiosity up enough so they'll study and find out whether you really have something there. Other people have suggested it, and certainly makes sense to be as healthy as possible.
Yes.
If you're going to get a spontaneous remission, if you're going to have that good luck or that serendipity, then taking control of things and being as healthy as possible is really going to help you.
Yes.
We'll be back in just a moment with Ann Fromm.
This is Hello Channel. Come learn English as you watch TV. It will change your life.
A cancer battle plan. Ann Fromm, she's been through it. She's been through the battle. Do you consider the battle over, or are you still working on it?
Oh, I think I'm still working on it. Even though I got rid of my cancer in 5 weeks, I'm still working at regaining my health. Much of it was from damage from the chemo, radiation, and surgery.
You know, a few of us can imagine, Ann, what it would be like to, you know, have your family, have your life, and then all of a sudden somebody say to you, you're going to be dead in 6 months, which is what they must have said. I mean, how did that
Yes.
feel?
I think shocking, because I'd always thought of myself as a very healthy person. I'd never smoked or drank. I exercised all the time. I mean, it was shocking to think of myself as having a fatal disease.
Did you feel bad at that time?
Oh, I had been in excruciating pain, and in fact, been in bed because I was unable to walk at that point. And it wasn't until later I found out it was cancer.
You were hoping of something mild, like maybe a little arthritis
Yes.
or a little fever.
Yes.
How old were your children at the time, and how do you tell kids about something like this, Ann?
No manual can prepare you for it. They were 7 and 10 years old at the time. And we just tried to be honest with them because they can tell when you're trying to hide something. And I think they're more afraid of that than anything.
Well, you were in a situation where the medical business had thrown the kitchen sink at you.
Right.
There was nothing else to offer. But a lot of people who are faced with your problem, they say no to radiation, chemotherapy, to the extensive surgery, and they say no, instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to eat a healthy diet and try and fight this on my own. Do you think you'd have been able to do that with your family? Do you think you would have been in a situation there where they would have listened to you and said, okay, Ann, go ahead, fine, you can give up what all of medicine has to offer, you just go ahead and eat your vegetables?
Yes. I think that's a very scary position to be in. I think it's actually harder on the spouse because they're the one that's going to be left behind if that person passes away. So I think you have to make up your own mind about what you're going to do, and that's what I tell people is educate yourself first before you make those decisions. And my husband was very supportive. He came with me when I visited the nutritionist and read the books that I read so that he was with me on that decision making.
Ann Fromm, tell me, if you were going to do it over again, you know, knowing what you know now,
Yes.
and you started with the breast cancer, what would you have done different as far as surgery goes?
I may have opted to do surgery because the original tumor was the entire size of my breast by that time. That would be the only thing I would even consider doing now. Based on what I know now, I would have tried the nutritional route first.
How about the women who have smaller lumps compared to the size of their breast? Have you done enough reading and research that
Yes.
you'd feel pretty confident telling them what to do?
I never tell anyone what to do. You have to do what you believe in.
Well, if somebody asks you.
But
somebody said, Ann Fromm, look, I've got a tumor that 1 centimeter in size. Should I have my breast amputated?
No.
Which is no.
Absolutely
Lumpectomy?
not. There is even pros and cons on that. If you cut into a tumor, it's going to spread it. So there's even questionable on whether you even want to do that much. I would look into, what are the statistics? Does it show that it helps you? And in the long run, it does not help your lifespan by cutting out that little tumor.
As shocking as it may be, and I know, it doesn't make any difference whether you take and amputate the breast, in other words, do a mastectomy, or you just take a little bit of lump out. And I'd even go so far as to say, even if you left the tumor there, which I'd never recommend a woman does, it would make no difference. Well, what if I was your doctor and I said, Ann, it's not going to make any difference. You've got this 1 centimeter lump. It's not going to make any difference whether we just take the lump out. You'll survive just as long. Even if we take and cut your whole breast off and take the lymph nodes under your arm. I mean, how would you feel if a doctor was that honest with you?
That is a hard one.
Because that's faced with some pretty dismal information.
Yes, it is. It's hard to say, in that situation what I would do.
Well, wouldn't you rather live with your breast?
Yes.
How about the radiation? You had extensive radiation.
Yes, I did. On the biggest tumor, so I could begin to walk again.
And that helped you as far as pain relief, didn't it?
Initially, yes.
And how about the chemotherapy? That must be a really terrible experience, to have that much physician-induced sickness in a person. Well-intentioned, because, there is some evidence that chemotherapy helps a few people.
Yeah, I had so much of it. Every 10 days for a full year, I had more chemotherapy, and then the bone marrow transplant, you can get up to 100 times your normal dose during a bone marrow transplant. It very nearly killed me. I had pneumonia, my kidneys shut down, was covered with fungus from head to toe. It was terrible.
How about the cost?
It cost, my conventional care cost over $250,000. Now, this was 5 years ago, so it would be more now.
I was going to say, that sounds pretty cheap.
Yeah, and now the nutritional route I went on cost less than $2,000.
And did your insurance company pick up the bill?
Part of it.
And so this is another situation we have to deal with families, is the medical business trying to help a patient will often put the family in debt and add extra problems.
Right. It's worth it.
It's worth it to take a nutritional approach.
Right.
It's worth it also to evaluate therapies carefully. And I think that's one of the messages that you'd want to give all women out there and men who have health problems, is that when the doctor offers you a therapy, just don't tell the doctor, well, sure, whatever you suggest, you're the doctor. Instead, look into the benefits and the risks. And if you'd have done that with breast cancer back then, I'm sure.
If I'd been given all the information I needed, I would have liked to have made that decision myself.
I bet you would have, and I bet if a doctor would have been so bold as to tell you, Ann, you ought to be as healthy as possible, and that means eating a high vegetable diet and changing your diet radically, getting all that junk food out, you'd have appreciated that too, wouldn't you?
I would have, yes.
And it only makes sense to stop throwing gasoline on a fire. And the whole society in the medical business realizes that the rich American diet is what causes breast cancer, colon cancer, and prostate cancer. That's an exciting story. And we'll be back in just a moment with Ann Fromm.
Hello. That's right, I said hello. I'm talking about an exciting new television channel that will change your life. My name is Ruth, and I want you to be one of the first to know about Hello Channel. Hello Channel is designed to teach you to speak English. Anyone can learn. We offer something for everyone. You'll see programming for children, teenagers, and adults, all on different levels. With Hello Channel, you'll hear, see, read, and speak English as you're watching entertaining television programs, making it easy to learn. If you've always wanted to learn English but haven't had a chance, Hello Channel is perfect for you. Start today, and remember, for a brighter future, just say hello.
And we're talking with Ann Fromm, her book, Cancer Battle Plan. I mean, you're a woman who really took control of things and decided to change things. And I think, the message we're really trying to tell women, man, is that they ought to do the same thing. They ought to find out what's going on, ask the doctor questions, just don't take things for granted.
Right.
not necessarily refuse all the treatments the doctor offers, but don't just take them because they're being suggested.
I was interested in that battle plan. Can you just recite that for us? It was actually a chapter. Each of those steps in the battle plan was a chapter in your book. Can you recite those for us?
Well, I think first of all, what you just mentioned was to take control of your health. Don't leave the responsibility up to your doctor or to anyone else. Realize that you're the general in charge of your own battle. Everyone else is just hired help. Secondly, know your enemy. In other words, find out everything you can about cancer. You know, how it got there, what conditions does cancer thrive in, so you can create a condition that cancer can no longer thrive in. And then thirdly, rebuild your natural defense system. In other words, you've got a God-given immune system that is supposed to be working, so work on building that up again. Bring in reinforcements. You may need some supplementation, some vitamins, minerals that you have been deficient in because of years of not eating correctly. And then the whole idea of putting together a professional team that will help you. Every general has advisors on his team, and you want to bring in the best people in their area. So, in other words, my doctor ate candy bars and drank pop for lunch every day. I knew that he didn't know everything there was to know about nutrition, so I consulted someone whose specialty was nutrition. And then the other idea of, you know, bringing in, you know, your family, your support system that'll help you keep going in your
But in the
battle.
medical business today, and the sad situation is that the woman doesn't stand a chance in most cases, unless she's strong, or a man even. And when it comes to prostate cancer, you're told by the godlike doctor that this is the problem, and this is what you have to do. You're told, you have a serious disease, and we have high-tech treatments. But nobody stops to ask whether there's a positive relationship between the two. In other words, after they give you all that treatment, you're going to end up any better. And it's a sad situation. How are we going to change that in our society where the patient gets a better shake?
I think people are already beginning to realize there's no magic pill.
Do you think so? You think they've been burnt enough and hurt enough to know that?
Yes. And, you know, you just have to look around just with open eyes to see that that's true. And as people do that, they're looking for something else. There must be another answer. I don't think they're getting all the information they need to know what that answer is, but I think they're searching.
Well, what I find, though, is even after they get the information, I mean, you've told everybody that they need to eat more vegetables, give up their hamburgers, their greasy foods. Once they hear it, they take the attitude, well, it's never going to happen to me.
Right.
Or even if it does happen, I even see people who are in very serious trouble. You know, they have diabetes, they have heart disease, and sometimes cancer, and they still say, well, it's too difficult to change, I'd rather die.
Yes, I've heard of that too. People tell me, I don't want to give that up, I'd rather die than do that.
What about young people? In our studio audience today, we have a number of young people. Can they give up hamburgers? I can't imagine that could happen.
I have 2 teenagers, and as they've gotten used to the idea of, you know, eating in a different way, they like the way they eat now, and they've each on their own decided to be vegetarians.
Are these girls or boys?
A girl and a boy, teenagers.
And did you explain to the girl that there's an association in a family with breast cancer, that the daughters of women with breast cancer, particularly young women like you, have a much, much higher risk of getting breast cancer?
Yes, and all the hormones you get from the meat and dairy products, and that was something we completely cut out.
Well, you have to straighten her out. I'm sure you told her it wasn't genetic that you passed on to her. It wasn't bad inheritance. You taught her how to cook.
Right.
And that's how she increases her risk of breast cancer, and that you can change.
Yes.
And the family's happy about this whole thing? They're happy to have Mom, no question about that.
Right, that's right. It was worth it, giving up a few things like that. And the thing was that tastes do change. I think there was foods I thought I couldn't live without, and now I really don't even care for them anymore.
What an inspiring message. A battle plan for cancer. You can read about it and you can do it. Anne Fromm, I want to thank you very much for sharing such an inspiring story with us. That was very, very interesting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you, folks, for joining us.